Gas masks are lying on the floor of the gymnasium of school number 3 in Pripyat. Not one, not two. About 2,000 pieces scattered around the perimeter of the room with an area of 400 square meters. The rubber masks are covered with a layer of dust from 2 to 5 millimeters thick. Most of the straps are broken. They were thrown here in May 1986, after the evacuation, when the Soviet military carried out the decontamination of residential buildings. The gas masks were declared unsuitable for further use and taken to one place. There are still metal cots in the maternity ward at 7 Enthusiastov Street. The mattresses have rotted away, leaving fragments of foam, rubber, and fabric. A child's shoe is fixed on one of the beds, the right one. The size corresponds to the age of 2 to 3 years. On the windowsill in the residence room is a stack of medical cards, the sheets of which have glued together from moisture into a monolithic block about 8 centimeters thick. Friends, subscribe to the channel and like it. Write down how strange you are watching us from. This helps the algorithms to promote our video. Thanks. The entries on the top sheet are dated April 1986. Pripyat is located at coordinates 51 degrees 24 minutes 16 seconds north latitude and 30 degrees 3 minutes 26 seconds east longitude in the Kiev region of Ukraine, 3 kilometers west of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. At its peak, in early 1986, 49,360 people lived here. The city was officially evacuated on April 27, 1986, 36 hours after the explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. It has not been occupied since. As of 2023, the background level of gamma radiation in the city center is 0.5 to 1.0 microsieverts per hour, 16 to 33 times higher than the natural background radiation for this climatic zone, 0.03 microsieverts per hour. At certain points, in basements, at the roots of trees where leaves have accumulated for 38 years, values up to 40 microsieverts per hour are recorded. The measurements were carried out by a group of the Ukrainian State Agency for the Management of the Exclusion Zone during annual inspections. Of the 160 residential and public buildings in Pripyat, 76 are in critical condition, according to the conclusion of the Ukrainian Engineering Services drawn up in 2019. The roofs of 23 buildings collapsed partially or completely. The supporting structures of the Palesi Hotel cracked with an opening of up to 12 millimeters. The foundations of 11 buildings have been displaced due to the growth of the root systems of trees that have not been cut down since 1986. There is a Ferris wheel with a diameter of 26 meters on the site of the City Park of Culture and Recreation. It was installed in April 1986 and has never been put into operation. The opening was scheduled for May 1, 1986. The level of gamma radiation on the metal structures of the wheel in 2016 was 1.4 microsieverts per hour, higher than in the surrounding space due to the absorption of radioactive particles on the metal in the first days after the explosion. The wheel was receiving radiation earlier than it had ever received passengers. Pripyat was founded on February 4, 1970, as the 9th Atomograd in the USSR, a city built specifically to serve the personnel of a nuclear power plant. The construction was carried out according to the master plan developed by the Giprograd State Design Institute in Kiev. 1.84 square kilometers were allocated for the city in the Polesky district of the Ukrainian SSR. The name is given by the Pripyat River, which flows 500 meters to the east. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant, named after V.I. Lenin, was founded in 1970. The project provided for the construction of 6 power units with RBMK 1000 type reactors, a large capacity channel reactor, 1,000 megawatts each. The first power unit was commissioned in September 1977, the second in December 1978, the third in December 1981, and the fourth in December 1983. The combined capacity of the 4 units was 4,000 megawatts, which made the Chernobyl nuclear power plant one of the most powerful power plants in the USSR. The population of Pripyat grew by an average of 4,000 to 5,000 people per year from 1970 to 1985. The population reached 25,000 in 1979, 40,000 in 1983, and 49,360 in early 1986. The average age of a resident of Pripyat in 1986 was 26 years, one of the lowest rates for cities in the USSR. 15,000 children lived in the city. About 6,000 people worked at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant and related organizations. The city's infrastructure included There are 5 secondary schools for 4,980 students, 15 kindergartens for 4,980 places, a 410-bed hospital with a polyclinic, the energetic Palace of Culture with an area of 8,000 square meters, 3 indoor swimming pools, 10 gyms, 35 playgrounds, a riverport, a railway station, and 27 retail outlets. Water supply was provided from artesian wells 120 to 150 meters deep. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant staff worked in 2 shifts of 12 hours each. The 4th power unit was serviced by a night shift under the supervision of shift supervisor Alexander Akimov. There were about 200 people on the shift. The average salary of a reactor operator was 450 to 500 rubles per month, with an average union salary of 190 rubles. Access to scarce goods and preferential housing made work at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant attractive to specialists from all over the USSR. On the night of April 25 to 26, 1986, the 4th power unit conducted a routine test of the turbogenerator number 8 in the run-out mode, checking the turbine's ability to provide power to the emergency cooling pumps of the reactor core. The test program was compiled by Anatoly Dyatlov, Deputy Chief Engineer for Science. On April 25th at 1:06, the planned reactor power reduction began. The test was postponed 3 times in previous years due to production necessity. It was held that night. April 25th, 1:06. Reactor power reduction has begun from the operating level of 3,200 megawatts to 700 to 1,000 megawatts, as stipulated in the test program. 13:05. The Kiev dispatcher demanded to stop the decline. The network needed a load. The reactor remained in transition mode for 9 hours. 23:10. Permission has been granted. The power reduction resumed. April 26th, 0:28. When switching the control system, operator Leonid Toptanov allowed the power to drop to almost zero, about 30 megawatts instead of the planned 700 to 1,000. According to the regulations, the reactor should have been shut down. Anatoly Dyatlov gave the command to continue the power increase. 1 o'clock. The power has stabilized at 200 megawatts, significantly below the norm. Dyatlov authorized the start of the test. 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 4 seconds. Turbine control valves are open. The test has started. The capacity of the core cooling pumps has increased, and vapor formation in the reactor has decreased. 1:23:40. Shift Supervisor Akimov, on Dyatlov's orders, pressed the AZ5 button, Emergency Protection, input of all control rods. The rods began to enter the core. Due to the RBMK's design defect, a positive steam reactivity coefficient and displacers at the ends of the rods, the insertion of the rods provoked not a reactor shutdown, but a sharp increase in power. 1 hour, 23 minutes, 44 seconds. High power acceleration was detected. The reactor's capacity exceeded 30,000 megawatts in a few seconds, which is 10 times higher than the nominal value. 1:23:47. A thermal explosion destroyed the core. The 1,000-ton reactor cover has been dropped. After 2 to 3 seconds, a second explosion, presumably steam or chemical. Fragments of the core and graphite were thrown onto the roof of the 3rd power unit and the surrounding area. The fire started immediately. 1:28. The first fire crews of the Chernobyl Paramilitary Fire Department No. 2, under the command of Lieutenant Pravik and Major Telyatnikov, arrived at the scene. The personnel did not have dosimeters capable of measuring more than 3.6 X-rays per hour. The devices went off scale. The actual dose rate on the reactor roof was, according to subsequent measurements, from 2,000 to 16,000 X-rays per hour. Firefighters worked without protective suits for 45 minutes to 3 hours. 6:35. An open fire on the roof has been eliminated. The reactor continued to burn. 134 personnel and firefighters received doses that caused acute radiation sickness. 28 of them died within 3 months. The evacuation of the city of Pripyat was announced on April 27th at 1400, 36 hours after the explosion. 1,216 buses and 170 trucks were used to transport 49,360 people. The evacuation took place from 1400 to 1700 on April 27, 1986. Residents were informed on the city radio that the departure was temporary for 3 days. They were allowed to take documents, a small number of things, and food. Most of the apartments are locked. There's food left in the refrigerators. There are unwashed dishes in the kitchens. In a number of apartments, the televisions remained on. The researchers subsequently discovered children's toys on the floor, clothes on hangers, books with bookmarks, board games in open boxes, unfinished letters on tables. Immediately after the evacuation, Pripyat was cordoned off by troops. A 30-kilometer exclusion zone was created around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant by a decree of the Council of Ministers of the USSR dated May 2, 1986. The perimeter is exposed by the forces of the internal troops of the USSR Ministry of Internal Affairs. In the first weeks, 500 to 1,000 military personnel entered the zone every day. By the end of 1986, about 200,000 liquidators had passed through the zone. In May to June 1986, forced decontamination was carried out in residential areas. Contaminated debris was swept from roofs, facades were rinsed with pressurized water, and the topsoil was removed with bulldozers to a depth of 15 centimeters. The removed soil was buried in specially designated areas. Furniture and personal belongings of residents in most cases were destroyed or buried in burial grounds, dug pits 3 to 5 meters deep. In November 1986, the first sarcophagus, the shelter facility, was erected over the 4th power unit. The construction took 206 days, involving about 90,000 workers and engineers. The volume of concrete is 400,000 cubic meters. The volume of metal structures is 7,000 tons. The sarcophagus was designed as a temporary structure for a period of 20 to 30 years. By 1996, the collapse of part of the internal structures was recorded. In 2013, part of the roof collapsed, exposing the interior. The first journalists and scientists who gained access to Pripyat in the 1990s recorded that the first clothes of firefighters who arrived on April 26, 1986, such as tunics, jackets, and boots, are still stored in the basement of City Hospital number 126. The radiation level on these objects in 2001 was up to 1,000 microsieverts per hour. In the office of the headmaster of school number 3, there is a class magazine with the entry, April 26, lesson cancelled. In the department store on the central square, there are price tags in rubles and kopecks of the 1986 model. Thanks for watching. Write a comment and like it if you liked this video. See you soon.